Guys, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to Intro to Psychology. And today, what we're going to be discussing is we're going to actually talk about what are called sleep cycles. And sleep is one of the most interesting things that you can get into with psychology and with brain research because there's so much that we know about it, but then also there's so much more that we don't know about it. So, for today, we're going to focus on what are called sleep cycles. And so, our objectives in looking at sleep cycles are to understand what is the purpose of sleep, like why do we sleep, and understand what happens to our bodies when we sleep. And then finally, to put it on a personal level, to understand how sleep affects you. And so, to answer the first question, why do we sleep? There's a lot that scientists have done research on, and we know that the body does while we sleep. And the first thing is that we know that the body begins to repair itself. If you have a cut, if you are sick, literally what your body does is it goes into overdrive and it begins to release the chemicals and the proteins that your body needs to fix places of your body in like your immune system begins to restore itself. A whole lot of things happen in this area. And then also your body restores chemicals. Your brain releases chemicals that kind of level out your hormone levels and the levels of chemicals within your body. We know that the brain reorganizes itself, almost like a computer defragging. Some scientists believe that actually your your brain begins to operate like a computer and begins to process information that you've gained through the day and it begins to sort it and organize it. We know that oddly enough that if you don't get enough sleep or if you don't get any sleep at all, that eventually your body just quits functioning, like you will drop dead because of lack of sleep, which is even more interesting when scientists don't understand completely why we sleep. We know that it's a mystery. There's a lot of speculation and research being done constantly about what happens to your brain when you sleep, what happens within your body when you sleep, and most curiously of all, like why we even dream. So let's get into the sleep cycles. There are 5 stages of sleep cycles, and each time that you go through a cycle, you repeat it again. Each cycle lasts about 90 minutes, hour and a half. And like I said, once you finish one, you start over with the next one. These cycles will repeat throughout the night. If you get about 8 hours of sleep, you will probably get about 5 cycles that you go through. And your body adjusts to how much sleep that you're getting. If you get the regular amount of sleep, your body adjusts to it to where you get a certain amount of cycles each night because that helps with the restoration process. There are 2 main phases. One that's called non-REM sleep or NREM sleep, and the other one is REM sleep. And phases 1 through 4 of the sleep cycles is non-REM sleep, and then phase 5 is REM sleep, and that's where you dream. And that would be really interesting when we look at that. But this is just a chart here that can you refer back to real quickly that kind of breaks down simply what happens in your sleep cycles. But let's go a little bit more in depth and look at the specifics. In stage 1, in the first sleep cycle, or the first part of the sleep cycle, you go into what's called light sleep. This is when you are still kind of aware of what's going on. You spend very little time in this, maybe 10, 15 minutes max. Your muscle activity slows, but you can have like muscle twitches. You probably have experienced at some point in time that you've twitched and then you've woken up. And people that are woken up in this stage, a lot of times they don't even really realize that they were even asleep. To them, it feels like that they were still awake. And then eventually you move into phase 2. Phase 2 is where you're going to spend about half your time in your cycle. Your breathing rate's going to slow down, your heart rate's going to slow down, your body temperature is going to drop. And this phase is going to be characterized by a change in your brain activity. And you're going to get what are called brain spindles or sleep spindles. And you see at the bottom of the chart, you get little miniature spikes that are very close together in your brain activity. And so when you're in stage 2, you're going to have these, your brain's going to be going on and you'll have these larger spikes, but then also you'll get all these sudden spikes, which are called the sleep spindles. Then in stage 3, you're going to get what is called slow wave sleep. And this is also a shorter period of time, but this is when you get into deep sleep. And in this deep sleep, your brain produces what are called very long waves called delta waves. And scientists are still debating on exactly what happens with delta waves, but we know that they're very elongated waves. Your brain activity begins to slow down. And then through that process, your brain activity slowing down, you move into stage 4. And this is very deep sleep. This is where aliens land outside your window, there's a war going on, and you don't know what's going on. Your body is characterized by rhythmic breathing. Your muscle activity is very limited. You don't move a whole lot. And then delta waves continue on in phase 4. But phase 4 is interesting because it transitions into phase 5, stage 5, which is what we call REM sleep. And REM stands for rapid eye movement. You'll spend about a quarter of your sleep time in rapid eye movement. And this is where your body basically turns off everything, all of your muscles. Your muscles relax, so where you can't move, your eyes twitch underneath your eyelids, and this is where you begin to dream. And scientists know that in this phase, the reason that your muscles are relaxed so much to where you essentially can't move, it's because it keeps you from acting out your dreams. If you're having a dream where you're running from like a monster, or that you are just going about your day doing something, it keeps you from actually acting those out and possibly hurting yourself. People that sleepwalk, it doesn't work like that for them. They actually do act out their dreams. And I've known people that have sleepwalked that have had conversations with other people in their dreams. They've gotten up, gone to got them a bowl of cereal and been completely asleep. The craziest story that I've ever heard was a woman who was sleepwalking, and she actually got in her vehicle, drove to the supermarket, and woke up holding a gallon of milk in her nightgown. And so for most people, that does not happen. You get some people, though, that they actually wake up in stage 5, and that is also scary for them because then they encounter what is called sleep paralysis. They're awake, but they can't move because their body has turned off their muscles. And with this, though, as far as what the brain does, the brain activity speeds up, and you get very rapid spikes throughout the brain, and the brain goes into dreaming. And we know that the younger you are, the more that you engage in REM sleep. The older you get, the less you dream. Some scientists, and my personal belief is that, particularly with children, very small infants, they engage in almost all REM sleep. And I think that's because they're dreaming about things that your body has a need to be active, and they're dreaming about doing things that they can't physically do yet. And so, in conclusion today, what we're going to look at, guys, are essential questions that we're going to focus on is we're going to look at this from a personal level, because we know that through getting regular sleep and getting on a sleep cycle that is consistent, and a sleep cycle that is not only consistent, but it is sufficient, because the older you get, the less sleep that you need. If you, as an infant, infants need to sleep half the day or more. As an adult, you need about 8 hours. As a teenager, you need between 9 plus, or 9 plus, somewhere in that range. So one thing I want you to consider this week is I want you to consider how much personally do you need per night. Can you function on 7 hours of sleep? Can you function on 10 hours of sleep? What works for you? Some people function on 6, but it's funny because if the people I know that get 6 hours of sleep at night, they consistently go to bed at the same time, and they consistently wake up at the same time, which allows their sleep cycles to get consistent. Their body literally begins to shut down at the same time and then wake up at the same time. The next question we're going to look at is, how can understanding your sleep cycle and your body's need for sleep help you as a student? Because a lot of being able to comprehend information means that your brain has to be rested, your body has to be rested, you have to be alert. And finally, here's your research question for the week. What challenges arise from a lack of sleep or too much sleep? And I want you guys to go through that, look and see what you can find on that, and then we will discuss that next week. And you can see, guys, at the bottom, I'm going to let you a little chart that gives you kind of an example of what happens during the different stages of sleep and what it looks like when you get regular sleep. And you'll notice there at the end that you end in REM sleep. And the reason for this is, if you're getting a regular amount of sleep, you're going to wake up when you're dreaming because your body is already waking up, which is what is great, because that means that when your alarm goes off or your mom comes to wake you up, then your body is almost already awake, and you do not wake up wondering where you're at or what's going on. You feel better. And also, you have a tendency to remember your dream because your brain is active at that point in time of dreaming. And then you go from dreaming to waking, and then you remember what you were dreaming about. And so, all right, guys, we will see you guys next week. Have a good week, and make sure you send me emails or messages if you have any questions.